And I know that Bob and I had a few experiences in Sacramento with James, and Bob said, let me hang out with James, he'll be my wingman. And those of you who know James know what I'm talking about. Those who never met James, God wish you had. And with that, Bob was very instrumental in some time frames in our lives when, especially after my wife had passed away and my little guy turned 18 and I turned 50, and all of a sudden my mortality started facing me a little bit more in the face. And as we're going to listen today, it's about planning, it's about strategizing, it's about us really trying to create goals and to create change that come from within ourselves, and being able to work with the people that can help us pull those dreams together for our children. And again, we never want to stop hoping, we never want to stop dreaming. And so through the course of my discussions with Bob through supported living programs, we had talked about the different things I wanted to look at in terms of how do we try to create that future for James, and my fears of who was going to be there when I wasn't there. And a lot of us are here because of what the tomorrows are going to bring and our fears of what those tomorrows are. And again, the blessing that I know I had meeting with Bob, and we even had a particular meeting where we're sitting down in the room, and James was over the age of 18 at this point, and we had our behavioralist there who was a very neat young lady, and we had, I think it was Karina from Bob's facility, and then we had Cranston from Regional Center, and we're talking about what we wanted this model to look like, or what we wanted to be able to see, and how do we sit back and understand where he might be at compared to what services we might need. And as we were trying to have this assessment, James is sitting there just really trying to figure out which of the two ladies he wanted to pick up on, because they were both cute. But it's been a great pleasure to know Bob over the course of time. And Bob, I'd like you to talk to us about some of the different things that we have the ability to try to help create. Thank you.
It's on. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Bob McGuire. I'm the owner of Pathway Incorporated, and my primary service is that of supported living. I've been doing this for approximately 21 years. We have about 220 consumers in my program. We service all of Riverside, San Bernardino counties and down into LA. We do go to Big Bear, Apple Valley, Wrightwood, Temecula, Coachella. We used to go out to Blythe, but that is quite far. We have a whole lot of different models for supported living, but there are all other alternatives for living situations for the individuals that are served by Regional Center, and those are, in the handout that I gave you, there are the families, home agencies, and those are for adults, and those are basically foster homes, and they go in, live with a family, and become part of that family. And there are foster family agencies out there, and those are for adults. There's also the foster family agencies for children. Again, they're foster families that take in the children, and they become part of that family. The biggest and probably largest area where people are placed are the community care facilities. Those are the board and care, and they're licensed by the state of California. Those are from different levels, from levels 1 through levels 4 to 4I, and then you get into negotiated, depending on the level of service the individual need. A level 1, a person is pretty capable and can take care of themselves. A level 2, they have some deficits and need some supervision and some care. Level 3's a little bit more moderate, maybe some medical, some behaviors. When you get up to level 4, there's more severe medical, more severe behaviors, and depending on what level of service, it will go all the way up to the 4I. There are also some intermediate care facilities that are geared towards medical, individuals with a lot of medical needs. We used to have independent living, and there was a program when I worked for Regional Center for 3 years, and my service area is Redlands, and they used to have a program out there called PAL, Project Apartment Living, and that was the only really independent living program in the area at the time, and this was in the late 80s, early 90s, where they would go have individuals go live for 2 years and be trained to become independent. And part of their program for this first 6 months, they didn't want family or anybody else to visit them. They wanted them to become independent. And then they go through different phases of the program every 6 months until they graduated. Then they went into the SPUR program, which was 12 hours of independent living skills training after they completed that program. A lot of times that model didn't work because all the individuals lived in 1 or 2 apartment complexes, and it became really a drama. They weren't getting along, they didn't have families, they didn't have support. So then they started looking at supported living, and this came through the Cole-Felt decision up in Northern California, where some families and regional centers sued the state to give, no matter how severe a disability was for an individual, options to live on their own in the community, where they could work, where they could play. Supported living has developed to being very intense to being just a few hours a month. Again, depending on each individual and the services they need. They just need help with budgeting, learning how to cook, the basic kind of things. The things that I do in my program is we can provide up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of service, and have done that. Others, we provide 2 or 3 hours a week, again, depending on that. And then we also have a homemaker program that we provide 24-hour, pretty much intense supports with individuals. And these are usually individuals that we have come out of state development centers or locked facilities, or they haven't been successful in level 4 facilities. Just one-on-one, we provide a whole bunch of services. Excuse me. When we talk about how does this work and what's the difference between community care licensing and supported living, when you're in a supported living setting, it's not licensed. Therefore, not being licensed, we can't provide care and supervision. How does that work? Sometimes it's challenging, but we do come up with a lot of solutions by looking at, as Carol referred to them as, other tax entities, well, I call them generic resources. One of the generic resources that we look at for individuals that we provide a lot of service to is in-home supported services, IHSS, and that's a county program. To be eligible for that, you have to receive Medi-Cal. And they can get up to 283 hours, but then there's a 10% reduction, so it's about 263 hours a month of IHSS that a person can be eligible for. They may not necessarily get that amount. Again, they're evaluated by the IHSS workers and say, this is how many hours we're going to give you for this month. We can always appeal that and get more. That's how we become successful. But to be eligible for supported living, person has to be age 18. Other than that, it's wide open. The only problem is that sometimes each regional center has a different interpretation, although they come by the same regulations, of how they want supported services delivered in their catchment areas. Some may just want phone calls or drive-bys, face-to-face contact every so often. This regional center, everything is pretty much face-to-face. With the negotiated service agreements that we do, where we provide intense hours, there's not too many, there's 20 supported living service providers in this catchment area, or a little bit more. I'm about the only one that does negotiated service agreements. There's probably 1 or 2 others that are getting into them, because it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of coordination to get those services in. So when you're talking to the CSC, some don't understand like supported living, and a lot of them are new that are coming in, and to talk about the relationship with the CSC with regional center, it's you getting knowledge and even sharing with that, because when I'm dealing with some of the regional center people, they don't know some of the services that we do and what actually supported living services are in place to do. Some will say, well, you're there to find them a house, you're there to move, you know, you got to do this, you're a taxi service. Some say, no, you got to do this. So it's really developing that relationship with the CSC and saying, I know these services are out there. They can be successful, no matter how severe the disability or the services a person will need. The things that I'm finding now is that we're dealing with an older population. I know most of you are fairly young, as I am, but we have parents that are getting older, and their children with disabilities are getting older, and they thought, well, maybe we'll outlive them or something will happen. We're dealing with parents that are 85, 90 years old, and their children are still living home at 60. The parents are getting that they can't take care of themselves. They have the disabled child that's kind of the role reversed, but they don't really have the skills to do that. What are we going to do? How do you handle that? Because supported living services cannot be put in place if a child is living at home with a parent or family member. So what do? It comes out, we've been able to put different services in there, attendance services, where we go in and help the child and kind of help the parents. Transition that out. They either stay in the home or we try to help them find an apartment because they've been at home with the parents all life. They've had their own rooms and they're not really ready to go transition to a community care facility. With supported living services, they are living in their own home or their own apartment. They either rent or own their own home. And then we provide the supports so that they maintain that. We've had married couples. We've had our oldest person that we service now is about 75 years old. We've had married couples that wanted to die in their home. In a recent meeting, I was with some regional center people. We were talking about some of the people I serve and said, well, this person's 70 years old. Why are they not in placement? Another person from regional center says, Bob does a good job. It's not that we do a good job, it's that we have the supports that we can assist these individuals in staying in their own homes. This person lived with her mom. Mom died probably 15 years ago. She wanted to stay in this apartment where she's comfortable and has survived and has done well. She has a sister that comes in from time to time. Sometimes it's more of a hindrance than it is because she doesn't like her sister, get out of here, and wants to be independent. We have young people with severe disabilities, with cerebral palsy, a lot of physical needs that have lived in their own apartments. With the help of IHSS and the natural supports, our philosophy has been is not so much as developing independence, but that interdependence like we all need. Certainly we want the individuals we work with to become and be able to do as much for themselves as possible, but we want the supports like we all have. And not say, okay, 6 months you can't come, because we've had an individual that was going through placement upon placement in community care facilities, level 4. Mom was very involved and sabotaged a lot of the placements. About a year ago, we moved her into one of our apartments. We have a triplex in the Bermuda Dunes area, and Mom lives in that area. And she's been with us, like I say, a year. Mom was able to go on a 7-week vacation. Mom is 78 years old, Dad is 82 years old. She said, this is the first time I've been able to go out and relax and spend some time with my other daughter, which has helped that she's seen that her daughter, with the right support, is able to live. She can go and do what she needs to do New York or the cruise where she went on up to through Canada and things like that. But that's what we're trying to do, to make parents feel comfortable. When do you start looking at supported living services? When we started with Grady, James was 16, 15 years old, and as he grew older, Grady kept saying, yeah, we need to get James out and really want to look at these programs. I don't know if Grady was ever ready. James was. James wanted to get out. We had a trouble with Grady convincing him. But that as a parent, I came from Montana. I always go back home, 50-some years old. My mom says, I always had a beer Bobby. I was never Bob. Her friends would go there, that's Bobby. Here's this big guy but that's how parents are. And that's how we're going to make individuals feel comfortable that you see your children, that they are going to be out there. And probably the biggest thing is developing confidence within themselves that they can go out. They're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but we really want to be protective. And it can work out if you look at different living alternatives. Because if you go to the residential care facilities, there's a lot of nice ones out there. But if you need to share a room, or some have their own rooms, but typically they're all set up where, you eat at a certain time, you go to these certain functions that are based on what the majority want to do in the house. In a supported or independent living situation, they get to choose their own menu, what time do they go to bed, what time they get up, if they want to make their beds. It's a big thing in community care. So you need to make your bed. I don't know, how many make your bed in here this morning? Yeah. You got to eat nutritious. Some of my other people that we always have meetings talk about, we really got to protect these people. If we're not with them when they're going shopping, they buy sodas and ho-hos. I say, is there a problem with that? No. But we do want them to eat healthy, but we do want them, to see if we can make them become independent and develop that confidence. And as you're going through, because a lot of CSCs, one of the things when you have people that are supported or independent living, it's a lot of work. And it's becoming a lot more work. Because when they first started this, the models up in Northern California, they were very intense, and they were taking people out of developmental centers that needed a lot of support and it was costing a great deal of money. $20,000, $25,000 a month for consumers at the time. They'd have psychologists and they have all this stuff. And then the state, just recently over the last couple of years, have been looking over supported living services with the maximum hours and why is it costing so much. This regional center, with our help, has been pretty good about being able to provide supported living services without a great big cost. But it is cost. We have to look at roommates. We have to look at, we've had people buy homes, first-time buyer programs. A lot of cities offer incentives to first-time home buyers. Sometimes you have to look at roommates, but people don't want roommates. We have a lot of people out that would like to live up in Upland and Rancho Cucamonga, but they can't afford it because they're on fixed income. So we do look at, possibly out here, we could do roommates. Downtown San Bernardino, even down there now, it's $600 for a studio apartment. So the cost, to be a cost effective for individuals, can they survive? Yeah. What do? We look at generic resources again, food banks. What other services are out there that we can help these individuals survive and do a quality life? And with this supported living situation, we want a whole life experience. We don't want them to go to a day program and come home. Want them to experience the social life and try to get them out there into church groups or other activities or bowling. We have a gentleman that lives here in Ontario every Wednesday, probably up here in Dave & Buster's. They know him. He's here every Wednesday. He has the same name as I do, but he goes by Robert. And he comes and he spends his time here on Wednesdays, afternoons, puts money on his card. I think he's a couple 100,000 points. He's looking to get the iPad. So kind of help Robert out there. But one of the things, too, that the state has done, and with that, is they have an assessment of what they're going to look at when you're looking at supported living. The CSC should be coming out and start this questionnaire and answering these questions of what, if they're going to be appropriate for supported living. Do I think we need that to know if they're appropriate? Because I believe, and I've seen the successes that everybody's could possibly go into supported living with the right supports. I've dealt with a mother that was elderly. She was 88, probably a little Alzheimer's, dementia for sure. We were working with her daughter, and then she got mad. She locked her daughter out of her house and threw her medications out and said, "Take her." Okay, she lived at home. The client was 54 years old, and this was probably 4 years ago. And they had some discussions with regional center. Well, we need to place her. We need to place her in a level 3 home because she has cerebral palsy, needed a wheelchair. I said, give me a little bit. She was born in Germany. All the documents that we had were in German. She hadn't had Social Security, so we had to go get them translated, notarized, bring them to all the system. got her her Social Security, and we were probably at one time doing probably 20 hours of services a day. And today, we do 13 hours a month with her. She lives in her own apartment in Redlands. She gets IHSS. She's established her relationship back with her mom and a sister in Northern California, and is doing really well. So there is success, but we have to listen to the people that we work with and who we're developing, because there are parents, and like I say, and Carol brought this up, and people have questioned, what is that relationship? Because I have parents call me, well, I need to know this and this. I said, I can't talk to you. What do you mean? I'm the parent. I says, they're an adult. Well, they're my kid. That's fine. You get a release and I will talk to you. But we try to do that as graceful as we can, but there are incidents that parents want to control a lot more and not allow their children to grow, and hopefully we can do that. And that's part of the thing that we've seen. So, does anybody have any questions or, okay. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't hear very well, so bear with me.
Now we got.
Right. We can work. Of course, I need to get paid because I need to pay my people. We do private pay and have done private pay in the past, and we can work with that. Insurances, other things we have worked with. So. Community care facilities, not necessarily. It all depends on what level of service they require. Level 2s, licensed facilities can administer medication. They can do some medical, but it's usually typically just administering medication and doing some catheter changes, but usually if they get into more medical needs, then they'll go to an ICF, which is an intermediate care facility. And they'll do more medical. It all depends what the needs of the person are.
Special diet.
Special diet, we've worked with people with special diets and support living, but again, that would be in the community care facility. They are governed by different licensing too. With community care facilities, back in 1999, this regional center, most regional centers went to 4 beds. There used to be 6 beds, and there used to be larger facilities, about 30 beds. And they're trying to get them down to be more home-like facilities. So they're going 4 beds, and then if you had a 6-bed facility before 1990, your grandfather did, still can get 6 people in there, so.
Let me go ahead and address that. Some of these topics are going to be addressed through the course of the day, and I'd like, if I could, to save that topic for a little bit later on, if that's okay with you. That's actually a letter that comes in from Medi-Cal. But again, what we have to worry about, what we don't have to worry about, and there's some letters that we can throw away. That's one of the ones that I like to say, just throw it away.
You got to be careful, because we work with individuals that they have died, and basically it's abandoned unless they have family or friends that will come and get it. Unless there's some arrangements that are made prior. With a gentleman who was 89 years old, he had really no family. The last family was out in New York, and he died. And with regional center, we took the stuff and put it in storage until somebody came around. Some of his family did. We found some photo album, we're able to give those to the family, but other than that, most of the stuff was able to give to other people or other consumers that were living independently.
That's also going to be the importance of, again, we talk about the strategies of transition, and it's so important to really kind of put those things together while we're having the ability to do it, and create those strategies to sit back and, again, obviously this guy's 89 years old, and again, like with a lot of people who are 89 years old, their supports are starting to dwindle as well, so you're just going to have to look at those dynamics, and that's where the supports are good to have in place to do that backup.
Yes.